Just over the past couple years, a weird phenomenon started to occur. Technology started doing things that it was not supposed to be able to do. And over again, we kept on coming across these deeply weird science fiction becoming reality examples. And it happened often enough that we said something is fairly profoundly different now. We need to go understand this. And to try to convey that sense of being in a new era, we titled our book The Second Machine Age. What we're experiencing is not the crowning achievement of the digital era. It's the warm-up act, and more is to come. To reinforce that, I want to take you on a whirlwind tour of the second half of the chessboard so far. Not the whole thing. I just want to give you 5 years of the kinds of innovation that we're seeing in digital stuff. So 2010, Google announced, I love how they announced it via a blog post. Like, no big deal, we're driving cars autonomously in traffic. In 2010, we had autonomous cars for the first time. 1 year later, there was a great head-to-head competition between mind and machine in an area that combines very complex communication with a huge amount of pattern matching. In other words, these two things that we're supposed to have the comparative advantage at. In 2011, there was a great head-to-head competition between humanity and digital technology. It was in the American quiz show of Jeopardy. The guy in the middle there is a supercomputer called Watson, purpose-built at that time by IBM, only to play the game of Jeopardy. He's up against two of the all-time best human players ever, and honestly, it was not even close. Over the course of 3 days, Watson took home more than 3 times as much prize money as either of the two humans. In 2014, Microsoft announced that with Skype, not only could you make free calls around the world with people, you could make free calls around the world with people even if you didn't share a language with them. So Skype now offers almost instantaneous translation for free among English, Spanish, and Chinese. If any of us have used this, it's not perfect. What's amazing is that it works at all. Translation has been one of the holy grails of the artificial intelligence community. We're finally getting to the point where we've got something we can work with. Also in 2014, at least one venture capital company gave an algorithm a proper vote on investments. And they said, look, you scour this industry that we're interested in, you hoover up all the information, process it, and tell us what you think of this investment idea. We're going to take that opinion seriously when we're making our evaluations. And so far this year, we've seen my all-time favorite demonstration of the power of artificial intelligence and machine learning came out of a team here in the UK, actually. A company called DeepMind published an article. This was in Nature, probably one of the most prestigious scientific journals in the world. This team published a paper in Nature in January of this year about teaching a system to play classic 80s era Atari video games. And what's so fascinating is that they built a system and they didn't even try to train it. They didn't say, now you're going to play Space Invaders, and you're this thing at the bottom, and you got to shoot these guys up top before they shoot you, and here's how the controller works. They didn't do any of that. All they did was say, here's the screen, the number up there is called the score, you figure out how to maximize it. No rules, no strategy, no feedback, nothing. Let me show you how well this worked. And I want to show you a video that DeepMind produced about this system learning to play Breakout, that game where you got a bunch of bricks and you try to knock out all the bricks. After about 10 minutes of training, the system is still deeply, deeply terrible at playing Breakout. It's about like what you and I would do if we were blindfolded and given the controller. So you see, it doesn't quite know what to do. It's just a little randomly bopping stuff around. It's losing very quickly game after game. That's after 10 minutes of training. Where this starts to get interesting is after 120 minutes of training, 2 hours from an absolute standing start. Look how well this system is playing. Oh, I think I'm not supposed to miss anymore. I've got this concept of how to maximize the score, so I'm never, ever going to miss. The whole notion of programming was absent here. This is a system mastering a completely unfamiliar task. They pointed it at about 50 different video games. In about 30 of those games, this system is now the world's best player of those video games. I hope I've made clear that I think we are not heading into an era of incremental or marginal performance change. The changes that we've already seen are big. We're going to see even larger ones going forward. To take advantage of all these changes, the way we think about technology certainly needs to change. The way we think about organizations and the way leading them needs to change as well. And the successful companies of the second machine age are going to have leadership that is a lot more open, a lot more receptive to the crowd, a lot more focused on platforms, and a lot geekier, if you like. I don't think that all of today's successful organizations are going to be able to pull off that transition. There's a lot of tech you've got to get right. More fundamentally, this is a mindset shift and an orientation shift that I think is very difficult for successful organizations to execute. We're heading into an area of a lot of turbulence, a lot of disruption, a lot of change in the business world. I feel really lucky that I'm going to get to study, for the next chunk of my career, I'm going to get to watch this transition because I think it's the biggest and the most important business story since the biggest business story of all time, which started here in the UK with the Industrial Revolution. Here comes version 2 of that story. It's going to be a deeply interesting time.